Okay. Which is the best number that you have?
I just have that one number.
Which B?
I guess. Yeah, his cell phone.
Which is 415. Let me look this one up myself. Is he at home or his cell?
He's on his cell.
Okay. 730?
Mm-hmm.
What's up, fellas?
Hey, Mr. Glenn. How are you?
All right, Mr. Brown.
You enjoying life?
Except for this mask I have over my face right now because the air quality is so bad.
Are you over in the East?
Doing okay besides that.
Are you over in the East Bay, Vern?
No, right now I'm in the city. I'm losing to the 49ers today. I have George Kittle, the tight end today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe a couple days ago was they said San Rafael had the worst quality air in America.
Well,
Wow.
it's going to be even worse today at work because it's still hazy. Like the bad air quality is considered to be right around 150.
Yeah.
And Southern Marin, we're in the 200.
Yeah.
And close to where the fire is, that's in the 300.
Oh.
That's like worse than beige ink on like a hazy day.
Yeah. Well. All right. Are you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it.
All right. Here we go. Well, welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce McGowan, longtime sports radio personality. And again, we're welcoming back our previous co-host, Vern Glenn of KPIX Channel 5.
Right.
How are you?
All right, man. Representing sports. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to work, I work for CBS Radio, so we're both working with the same company.
That's right.
Love it.
A little less smooth as his signature at the bottom.
There you
Check.
go.
I get to watch CBS once in a while. Does that count?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
That's okay. That's fine.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll take it.
We're all part of the same family.
Especially in this day when a lot of people don't even own a TV, let alone watch it.
Well, I guess they're watching everything on their tablets and smartphones and all that, right?
Yep, it's a push button world, folks.
Wow. Okay. Well, at each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question. Today's trivia theme is baseball pitchers. Got to figure, we're getting into the postseason here, which, by the way, a couple days ago, we saw that Yankee game. Holy smokes. Another 100-win season team goes down in flames.
Unbelievable. Cleveland, I feel badly for the folks in Cleveland. They've had such a long way. I mean, think about it. There's been 2 generations of fans that have been born have never known a championship. We know what that was like out here in the Bay Area. We didn't have a championship here in San Francisco with the Giants until 2010. So that was almost, 50 plus years.
Well, the 49ers finally in 1981, right?
Yeah. There's another lengthy period. Yeah.
All right.
Well, at least you got a taste of the World Series.
Yeah, they did get a taste of the World Series.
Yeah.
They've had a couple of tastes, though. That's
yeah,
the frustrating part.
kind of frustrating, too, though.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here.
Am I bad if I say that it's good for baseball to have the Yankees in there?
No, you're not bad to say that.
Yeah, no,
I mean, but they love to hate.
Yeah, either love them or hate them. All right, you're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. All right.
All right.
Let's save this file here.
Save that bad boy.
Save this bad boy. How's the family, Vern?
They're good. The youngin and the oldest is he's swimming along, having a good time at Redlands.
Yeah.
And and we got the other two knuckleheads at home. They're not doing their thing.
Is he liking college?
Zach loves college.
Good.
He loves Redlands, man. He loves the whole experience. I mean, it was a good pick. Good fit for him.
Yeah, Sarah likes Tulane, except for the weather is kind of a little wonky. Yeah, she switched from Chapman to Tulane because they had a program that the political economy.
Oh.
Yeah, and so it's kind of crazy weather. Just a couple times she's had to have sort of mini evacuations. Nothing,
Yeah, because boy, you can't have a good time in New Orleans. You just can't have.
Yeah, exactly. I told her, I said, don't have too good a time.
And Tulane's right over there, not too far from the Superdome.
That's true. Which is a lot smaller than I thought. When you're, you drive by it and you go, really? That's the Superdome? I was expecting.
When we were growing up, it's like, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, compared to some of the other stadiums, it looks like it's it.
All right, you ready? Anything specific you guys wanted to cover?
I think, baseball, the NFL, the usual stuff.
Okay. All right, here we go.
NBA season starts pretty soon.
That's it.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan and our favorite previous co-host, but who's been a guest on the show a number of times now, Vern Glenn. So, boys.
Last, I've been pre-booked on the show.
That's right.
Whenever we need a guest, we can count on Vern.
That's right. He the best.
We didn't need it. We didn't need a guest. We just bring him on. There you go. Yeah.
So this time of year is very interesting because you've got the baseball playoffs, football season's in full swing, and the NBA is right around the corner.
It's a lot of fun. I imagine Vernon is a busy guy. I know I am. There's so much going on. Sometimes, Vernon, it's hard to keep track of it. I guess.
You know what, Bruce? Yeah, I love this time of year when everything overlaps.
Yeah.
I mean, he was out here in our region, Santa the Sharks, so aren't all in full swing. So you got them all bunched together. Loving it.
Yeah. How do you decide as a television broadcaster? It's a much different situation than me, where I just do sports updates every half hour. You have to sort of pick and choose the stories you want to cover for that particular day. How do you decide, whether they go to the 49ers camp, the Raiders camp, go cover a Warriors game, which is coming up? I mean, you sort of, cherry pick your stories ahead of time, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question, especially for the listeners out there. We are not, first and foremost, we're not ESPN / Sports Center. We're not, we don't have a half hour a day to fill. We have more like maybe 2.5 minutes max per show.
2.5 minutes.
And that you got to get the news of the day, particularly if it happens if it's tied to the Bay Area, and you can try and localize whatever your lead is, and then you go on and take care of all the other local stuff from there. We, and when I say we, us in the industry, the Bay Area, we consider the NFL as the big dog, the thing that drives the bus. This being a two-team NFL market, it is a football market first and foremost, and then it kind of falls in line. The baseball playoffs, and when you've got, I got to tell you, I mean, Bruce, when you got 2.5 minutes total in a half-hour newscast, you're really severely impacted.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting next year.
Total really translates to about maybe a minute and a half, a minute 45 of actual content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was going to say, in a couple of years, not right away, but in a couple of years, the Raiders will be gone to Vegas in all probability. It's almost a sure thing, unless the Vegas stadium deal just completely falls apart, which seems highly unlikely. So that's going to change things. The Niners back in the 80s, I remember covering them when the Raiders were gone the first time. They had a great run, and it really didn't hurt the area. As a matter of fact, everybody got on board with the 49ers. They became the big team. I'm wondering if the Niners might benefit by this move of the Raiders.
I think in the long run that they will. At first, when the Raiders are gone, I mean, we're certainly going to cover them like we normally would.
Really? Okay.
And the high.
Well, sure, because you still have a lot of Bay Area fans.
But will you go down to Las Vegas and actually cover practices, you think, Vernon?
We're losing you a little bit there, my friend.
Yeah, losing Vernon just a little bit. I'm just wondering if they, I remember when the Raiders first left the Bay Area, and went to Los Angeles. Whoops.
We're going to call you back, right?
Yeah, I think we lost Vern. That's the problem with cell phones in this day and age. Nobody has a landline anymore. I was going to say, when the Raiders first left the Bay Area in 1982 and moved to LA, they actually didn't move to LA the first year. They practiced in their facility in Alameda, and their administrative facilities were still there. And they, on Sundays, they would get on a plane and go to LA. So every game was a road game. It was the weirdest thing in the world. And then the next year, because the facilities weren't ready to move into, they didn't have a suitable facility. So they were kind of the Los Angeles Raiders, you know, of the Lost Ark, I guess you could say. They weren't playing. They were playing in Los Angeles, but they were not. Oh, who's that?
I don't know.
Doesn't sound like Vern Glenn to me.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a tough deal, and I don't think I don't know if that's going to happen again. So now Vern's calling me.
Now Vern's calling you. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell him.
Well, he says I missed his call, so.
Oh, okay.
You got to give him a call back. I think we better take an unscheduled commercial break here.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Text him and let him know that
Okay.
we'll call him back in 5 minutes because we have to finish off this segment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, funny that doesn't happen too often, but every once in a while, that's why I got to get him in the studio, not on the phone.
Technology. I'm telling you, it does have its positives and it's got its negatives.
You know, it's funny. Have you been watching the TV show Ballers?
Never seen that. I've heard of it.
It's kind of enjoyable. It's Dwayne Johnson.
Oh yeah, sure.
And they few episodes I've watched have talked about him kind of being behind the Raiders going to Las Vegas.
Really?
And the interesting thing is, I'm thinking, I don't know when they actually filmed. That's because you don't just film like 3 days before. I mean, you got to film stuff months ahead of time, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they film. Television is much different than movies in that they film usually 5 or 6 episodes within a period of a week and a half. It's everything.
That's a good point. So that's even further behind that because they had to it's just kind of interesting. For those who don't know, we've been texting Vern, and he's going to be coming back on in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We're going to, in a couple of minutes, we're going to cut to a break. That's the problem with having these hard breaks.
Yeah.
Is got to cut out at 9:45 exactly.
Yeah, well, I know that feeling. I work in news talk radio, and we have exactly. You can go a couple seconds over or a couple seconds under, but if you go more than 10 seconds over or more than 10 seconds under, they don't like it.
No, they're going to have to just cut it off. Makes it seem like
it got their format. The 24-hour news cycle is very hard and fast. Unless there's a quick breaking story with like the fires that we've had here in the Bay Area in Northern California, things don't change that much.
Yeah. So Vern works only about 2 minutes a day. That's pretty good.
Well, you say, it's interesting. You should mention, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes for every half hour, and they do, I think, a total of half a news. So he gets a total of about 7 minutes overall, but it's just broken up in increments.
I wish I could get paid for 7 minutes for
it's tough though when your whole day comes down to your performance comes down to 7 minutes of work. I know I worked in TV for 4 years, and I remember your whole sportscast could go down the toilet if somebody screwed up and hit the wrong button on the film chain, and you shot. In those days, we shot film, and the film didn't come up. 3 film stories, and none of them came up, and I had no backup. And I just looked at the camera. I said, "Well, folks, I am without any kind of information here because our technician screwed up."
Well, there you see, but at least it's entertaining.
Oh, I guess.
You just say it.
Yeah, my technician, my director, was not happy with embarrassing him, which I shouldn't have done that.
Well, but there's a way to do it
Frustrating.
where it's kind of you sort of tease. I mean, that happens.
Yeah,
You see the sportscasters and the film behind it is
Yeah.
going on, and they go, "Well, we don't have the film, but let me tell you what happened."
Yeah.
It's okay.
Easier said than done, though.
Yeah, but it's funny because when we get Vern back on, I got to let everyone know he works very, very hard.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
There is a lot of preparation
Yeah.
just for that 2 minutes. Well, it's like my friend Paul Kingsman, who won a bronze medal in the '88 Olympics, and it's for a 2-minute race.
Yeah.
It's like,
you think
big deal, 2 minutes.
Think about horse racing. They talk about the Kentucky Derby being the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. I mean, it's the same thing. You prepare for one race.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Of course, in the Kentucky Derby is one race, but you do other races with the
Right.
horse.
Or think of sprinters, like Justin Gatlin or Usain Bolt. Yeah. I mean, they're running 10-second race. Crazy.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to get to our first commercial break here. We're talking baseball pitchers. Pitcher set a record for winning 24 consecutive games.
That's a good one. 24 consecutive games. Okay.
I think you've heard of this pitcher.
No, I'm sure I have. I can't think of the guy right off the top of my head, though.
Really?
No, I can't. I can take a guess.
I'll give you a hint. It actually overlapped 2 seasons.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'd be kind of hard to win 24 consecutive games.
Had to be on a good team.
I think he probably was on a good team that year, the 2 years.
Yeah, had to be a good team.
I'd have to actually go back.
Okay.
And kind of look because it
Was
wasn't
it a long time ago?
Oh, a while ago.
Okay, like back in the 60s,
A little before.
50s. Okay.
A little before.
40s.
Hey, wait, if I give you all this, you'll know what it is.
All right.
That's our trivia questions. Econ101.com. The answer to that question. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Vern's going to join us. All right.
It's so nasty as that smell too. I just feel so badly for all people who lost so much.
I know.
It's such a weird thing for this fire to just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I mean, Santa Rosa. I mean,
and the wind.
Yeah, and we're just not used to that. You always hear Big Sur and all that other kind of stuff,
I figured maybe.
Sports Econ 101.
There he is. Are you in a good area now?
Yeah, where'd you start losing me?
Oh, just towards the end.
When you said hello.
Yeah, you were just cutting out towards the end. It wasn't that big a deal. We had fun with it.
Was at the beginning of my soliloquy on the LA team?
Yeah, kind of when we were talking about the Raiders. Yeah, and then we lost you.
And then we were teasing about how you got a good deal. You only work for 2 minutes a day. Then we finished it up with how hard you really do have to work to get that 2 minutes in.
All right, that's true.
We always treat our people respectfully here at Sports Econ 101. Okay, all right, here we go. Sports Econ 101. Not only the audience, but we're welcoming back Vern Glenn because we dropped his call accidentally. I'm Edward Brown, your host.
I was like, what, did I all of a sudden become Harvey Weinstein? Holy smokes.
Okay. And, of course, we have Bruce McGowan.
Yes. I don't hear Vern, by the way. Do you hear him?
Yeah, I hear him.
Okay.
You there, Vern?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? It's funny. We hear at least
it's registering.
Speak. Yeah.
Okay.
We hear for some reason you're not coming through our headsets, but you are coming through on the. The audience can hear you. And that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Here was our first.
So as long as you see little audio things bouncing up and down, then we're good.
Okay. We are fine. All right. So here was our first trivia question: which pitcher set a record for winning 24 consecutive games?
Mentioned it was a long time ago. I'm going to guess somebody like Lefty Grove.
A little bit.
From that era.
A little bit after him.
40s, 1940s, or 50s.
In the 30s.
In the 30s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Come on.
Who was a great pitcher in the 1930s?
Left-hander.
Lefty Grove, but it wasn't Lefty Grove.
Wicked screwball.
Oh, Carl Hubble.
Carl Hubble.
There you go.
That's right. 1930.
Whose arm was literally bent backwards almost because of that screwball. You know that? He walked around with his arm bent at a weird angle. He was an interesting story about Carl Hubble. He was the Giants' farm director throughout their great years in the 60s. He was principally responsible for 8 players they brought in the 60s, like Cepeda.
Right now, some millennial that's listening is like, I think he's all in the 30s.
Carl who?
Carl. Yeah, no, he was the farm director. I'm not saying he signed all these guys or that he was responsible for everything, but he oversaw the operation. So he knew baseball. He knew his talent. He's an interesting guy.
And just thinking for some reason, because I think of the New York Giants, I'm reminded why Tittle just passed.
Yeah, that was sad. I don't know if.
Sad.
Yeah, well, he was 90 years old. A good life. Vernon, did you ever interview Wyatt Tittle before?
I sure did.
Yeah.
And he's one of those self-deprecating, like, oh, why do you guys want to talk to me? I'm old. He put it that way. Lived for years in Bodega Bay.
I didn't know he lived out of Bodega Bay. It's interesting. He was working. He had an insurance company, and he ran it up until probably he was about 80. '83. I remember going to his office on a project to do this interview with him. We talked for like an hour and a half, and it was wonderful. All the stories he told growing up in Texas.
For his golden years, he moved on to Vegas. He lived there. George Seifert, the former coach of 49ers, used to run into him all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Seifert would sail.
Yeah.
There.
I don't understand how anyone can live in Bodega Bay. Not only the movie The Birds, but
It's a nice place, actually.
It's the foghorns.
Oh.
You can't. I mean, I've stayed in hotels there, and you can't get any sleep.
I
Foghorns
stayed there and
are
never had a problem. But back to why I said the first NFL game I ever saw. He was the quarterback for the 49ers against a young Bart Starr and a rookie coach by the name of Vince Lombardi. And this was 1959. I was in the Little League at 7 years old. But he was a great, it's sad that the Niners traded him at probably the worst deal they ever made because a young John Brody, who turned out to be a pretty good quarterback, was coming up in the ranks. And it turned out to be the best thing for Wyatt because he got to play in New York, got a lot more notoriety, went to 3 NFL championships, never won a title. But 90 years old, that's a good life. You live 90 years, you're doing okay. So
yeah, if I could be Brian Vern at like 90 and just go to sleep, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, I got my old dog who's 20 years old today. He was having a tough time getting up, and I'm thinking, well, he's like a 100-year-old man, so I guess he's had a good life too. Yeah.
Why is a dog is so sped up? Why?
Well,
it's 20 and you die, right?
It's interesting, Vern, you mentioned that because I talked to a vet and they said everybody says dog years. 1 year for a human is like, or 1 year for a dog is like 7 for a human. But it depends on the breed. Smaller dogs live longer, so it's really more like 4 or 5 years. Bigger dogs, it's more like 8 or 10 years. So they just say. Is that
because of the impact on the heart?
Yeah, it's just the size of the animal, and dogs that are inbred, that are purebred, usually don't live as long. Mutts usually live the longest. Little mutts live the longest. It's kind of like little women. Who lasts the longest of a human species? Usually little women. I knew a little gal who was 4'11". She lived to be 104. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I guess the heart doesn't have to pump as much
blood.
Also, a lot of it has to do with, you think of those tortoises that live 200. Because they're really slow. They don't get excited.
Metabolism is slower. Yeah. I don't think I'd want to live that long. That's too long.
That's why you get those little hummingbirds.
Yeah. That's interesting.
All right, so guys, so the curse of the 100-win season. What they say that there's so many, only like 3 out of 20 teams that have won 100 games made it to the World Series.
Isn't that amazing?
Or maybe
they lost. I mean, the Cleveland Indians in 1954 won 111 games. I think they set the
got
record.
Swept.
And they got swept. So I felt badly. I don't know about how Vern felt. I mean, I'm sure the network people are happy to have the Yankees in there because they're going to get more watching the game, the World Series, if they make it to the World Series. But for Cleveland to lose in the divisional series,
they're up 2-0.
Up 2-0, and just to let that thing get away. I mean, Vern, I don't know about you, but I think that's one of the biggest letdowns in sports that we've had in recent years.
Well, I've lived it, and so have you, Bruce. Everybody out here certainly remembers the divisional series with the low market Oakland A's against the mighty New York Yankees. 2001.
Oh, please.
And they won the first 2 games 2-0.
Yep.
Went to Yankee Stadium, won both those games.
Yep.
And then lost the last 3 and got bounced.
Yeah.
I'll never forget.
It was right after 9/11. It was like a month after 9/11.
Yeah. I'll still remember Jeremy Giambi not sliding.
Well, it took an amazing play.
Derek Jeter made that fantastic. That play just
nobody saw that one coming.
Yeah.
But that was kind of New York. Almost, it was their moment. I mean, I think the team was playing for the city, for the country.
Yeah.
It was kind of a galvanizing moment. It sort of that kind of blunted the pain of losing that for the A's standpoint. And then, of course, a couple years later in 2003, same thing happened. They win the first 2 games against Boston. They go to Boston, lose 2 in a row, and then come home and John Lackey, I think it was
2004.
2003. 2003 when the A's lost to
the A's. I'm sorry.
And they lost to the Red Sox. So
in 2004, you had the Yankees up 3-0.
Yeah.
And lose.
On to Boston. Yeah, that was.
If you really want to dial it back, early 90s, Giants, they won over 100 games.
That's right.
They didn't win the division.
They didn't even win the division.
With Atlanta.
Yeah. That's right. They won 103 games. They had to sweep the Dodgers the last weekend of the series in LA, 4 games. They won the first 3, and then they got blown out by the Dodgers, who were out of contention.
Yeah.
And what about Seattle?
Oh, Seattle, that's right. Seattle in
14
2000, you mentioned 2001. They got beat by the Yankees also in the Elite Championships. And they had that great season. So, yeah, it happens. I mean, you got to stay hot at the right time. The Indians won their 22 games, and they were playing some great baseball, but I think, unfortunately, they just ran. You run into a short period of some bad breaks, and in the divisional series, you can lose quickly. You're out in a hurry.
Well, he also had Lindor didn't bat very well.
No, he didn't. He'd had such a great year.
Yeah.
And they lost Encarnacion to an ankle injury that had to hurt 2 games in New York. So
I often wonder how the old timers feel when they game, and if a pitcher can go 5 innings, and he comes right out, and then you have the setup guys, you get the closer.
Yeah.
But, when the go guys are like, plus they just
going. How well would they have done if they only had to pitch 5 innings?
Well, the whole thing of specialization started in the 80s. I mean, there were guys who came in that were good closers, but in the old days, you pitch 8 games and maybe 8 innings, and maybe you hand the ball off to your closer. But that really started with the middle relief specialists in the 1980s, and then it made sense because the league, both leagues had expanded, and there were fewer players available, and pitching was at a premium, so you didn't want to burn your guys out.
Well, how long have they had a 25-man roster?
That's a good question. I believe since going back to the 50s.
So then you wonder, okay, so if they didn't have a bunch, what did they have? A bunch of infielders? Yeah, it's like what
they've always had every team's always had at least an 8-man staff going back to the 30s, I think. But it makes I don't know about you, Vern. I don't know how you feel, but I'd like to see baseball expand to a 28-man roster, and it would just make it easier. You wouldn't wear your bench out. You want the players to be at maximum capability late in the season, and when they're worn out and burnt out, it just doesn't do the game any good. What do you guys think about that?
I think it would take a key rash of injuries at the wrong time.
Yeah.
They're really kind of in the offseason to take a look at it and go, look, we gotta protect these arms.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna happen. I think it will go to that, but it's just a matter of when and not if.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be bench. Well, I was going to say, if the 3 guys you have would be bench players, you wouldn't be breaking the bank, so it wouldn't be a huge commitment financially. So I don't know what the problem.
Well, here's the other thing: they could increase the 162 games to 200 games, and we have baseball all year round.
Please, no, we have too many games as it is. No. I'll tell you, I love hockey and basketball, but there are way too many playoff series. I mean, you think about it. If you win a championship in the NBA, you play for 2 months. You play in 4 different series.
Yeah, it kind of seems to diminish it. It's a little,
and they stretch it out. They have like 2 games a week. It's ridiculous.
I do like the way baseball does, 1 game wild card.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
You
shouldn't have. If you're a wild card team, you shouldn't be allowed to be in a situation.
Yeah, those are fun to watch.
Yeah.
Even the way it's managed is different.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No question.
Yeah. Hey guys. Okay. Second trivia question is, how old was pitcher Satchel Paige in his rookie season? That's our trivia question. And by the way, this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, providing mortgage investments that are currently yielding over 7.5% secured by real estate at conservative values. It doesn't get any more conservative than that. You got to check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com.
I will.
You will. For what is it, 48 months now? They paid consistently between 7.5% to 8.25% interest.
That's about the time. 48 months I've been working with you.
That's
right.
That's true.
48 months.
Actually, that's right. Very good. All right, don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101 is going to be right back.
All right. So, Vern, you're at the Niners today?
We have the Niners today. Right now, I'm on
Hey, we're just finishing
here for 101 South.
How's the traffic?
Not bad. I mean, I'm going about 60, close to 70.
Okay. Well, you're going against any commute would be, and it's over. The commute's over. But if you were in the commute, you'd be going against it anyway. So not so bad.
My dad would.
Yeah, I guess the 49ers aren't having problems with quality like the Raiders are. The Raiders, it's so bad that they had to move some stuff indoors.
Well, they got there, and we can talk about this.
Yeah.
They shortened a lot of the individual drills.
Okay.
But the team drills, they went full tilt yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And I would imagine the 49ers are doing a similar thing. I'll ask you, but I want to get what
was going to say,
North Carolina and the Eagles tonight.
yeah, they're about 30 miles further to the south, so I would think there'd be less smoke in the air down in the south.
No, it's just San Jose's, too.
Is it really? Yeah. Are you? Is it pretty smoky where you are right now? Does it look pretty?
Yeah, I'm looking around. I see nothing but
Oh boy.
It is bad.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and apparently, I guess they're.
I don't know what's over your house. Sunday night I was in bed, and then after 2 minutes, I'm like,
Yeah.
And then it's like, man, something's good, like it's on fire.
Yeah.
Grab the flashlight, check the perimeter of the house, and nothing, and then just, it was just eerie wind, but just filled with smoke, and ash.
That was so weird too, because that wind. I was sitting there watching TV about 10 o'clock, and that wind came out of nowhere, and only lasted for about 10 minutes, but it was like a storm. And then the smell, and I didn't. We've had. So I didn't think anything of it. The next day, I was driving to somewhere and I had the radio turned on and they're talking about this devastating fire. And I went, oh my God. So.
Yeah, we had a little bit of residue in the window. And
Yeah.
on the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had, it's weird, Sunday night, 3 a.m. because I go, I can't, I'm really having a hard time. Something's going on.
Oh, really? You're having a hard time breathing?
Yeah.
Was the smoke?
It was the smoke. And, but Sunday night, I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't see anything, but I could smell it. I could see some smoke.
Yeah.
So, I just called, obviously they called the 911 and they said, well, if you can't see flames, don't worry about it, but it's happening in Napa. I said, okay.
Yeah.
And so, close all the windows and all that. And that was the worst I've ever experienced.
Yeah, it was bad.
And, then I kind of started feeling like a little selfish. Like, oh my God, this is like nothing compared to what these people are doing. Like,
I remember
was just showing me a video of one of his very good friends' house burned down.
Yeah.
They were in Italy.
Oh, that's so bad. That whole area. Did you see the video of Cardinal Lim in high school?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, just cut it.
Yeah.
It looks like those. It looks like those circa World War II post-bombing.
Yeah. I wonder where the kids are going to go to school the rest of the year.
Just have to split them up.
Have to split them up and put them in the other schools, probably. Yeah.
Did
the whole school burn down? I thought only part of it did.
That's what I thought, but probably didn't happen.
I was gonna bring a question to you, Edward, as a real estate thing about how it works, and maybe listeners might be interested. How does it work with the homeowner's insurance, and the house is burned down? I mean, how quickly do you get the check? Do they give you a floater until you get the big check? As far as here, go find a place to live. If you build a house that's better than the one you had before,
it depends on
all that work.
Yeah.
I only know.
And then
so
it's
much
commercial real estate. Let's just say there's a shopping center, a completely furnished. Then how does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, we can work that up. Okay, here we go. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan and our favorite Vern Glenn. There's a lot of Vern Glenns out there, but there's only one favorite one.
Are there a lot? I've only heard of one Vern Glenn.
You Google Vern Glenn. It's strange. I mean, there's a smattering of them kind of across the country.
Is that right?
Interesting.
Okay. All right, here was our second trivia question. How old was Satchel Paige in his rookie season?
I think that's 42.
Yeah,
that's correct.
I was going to say 42.
42.
Very good. You got it first, though. Vern got it first. But I said he was kept out of baseball because of segregation, and I believe he pitched with Cleveland, and I think he was a part of the '48 team that went to the World Series and won it.
Yes, he was.
So he got a World Series ring. I'm not sure if was that his first year. It must have been. 7 was Jackie Robinson's first year, and there were no other players, I believe, that played in baseball that were
wasn't Larry Doby?
Larry Doby, that's right. He was the second one. But Cleveland was very aggressive.
Wasn't he with Cleveland?
Yeah,
they had an owner by the name of Bill Veeck who was a real showman, and Bill Veeck was one of the first owners who actually went out and tried to bring in as many African-American players as he could. He brought in Larry Doby, he brought in Satchel Paige, and there were a couple other guys as well.
Then he also did the old Eddie Goodell.
Eddie Goodell, the little midget, that lasted all of one at bat.
One at bat.
Yeah.
But who was the guy who had one arm?
That was Pete Gray.
Yeah, and he actually hit a couple of runs.
He did. That was during the war when they were really desperate. Those were some rough seasons because like half the players were in the service.
Wow.
Man, we've had, for our listeners, we've had here in the Bay Area an absolute disaster just north of the San Francisco Bay Area. As a lot of people may know, the wine country was just singed by this series of fires, and it was just bizarre that they all blew up at once with a bunch of wind and sparks, and Santa Rosa got burned, and a local high school got burned to the ground. And Vernon, I don't know about you and Edward here, this has been a weird last couple of months between the hurricanes in the south and in Puerto Rico, the Vegas shooting, and
Mexico having an earthquake.
Mexico having an earthquake. I mean, it's some crazy times.
God, every week it's just a disaster.
Yeah.
And just not all of Napa. I would say maybe half of Napa, Glen Ellen, Santa Rosa, Mendocino, Sonoma. Just a lot of it just looks like one of those old timey World War II post like bombings with Berlin and Hiroshima. It just over 25,000 evacuated out. All these centers everywhere, and then the air quality is just abysmal.
Yeah.
But I have a question. I just wondered, because we're Americans, we're survivors. I mean, we will recover. But as folks return to their homes and they, claim their insurance policy, all kind of, I'm just wondering how that works. I mean, how quickly do these homeowners, get a check to rebuild? I mean, they can't replace, photographs and really, family, heirlooms, stuff like that.
Sure.
But I mean, as far as rebuilding the house, the structure, I gotta imagine it'll be better than it was before. And
well, in some cases, it depends. I guess it depends on the policy. Obviously, the insurance companies are going to be inundated, so I don't know how quickly they can get out checks, and whether the policy covers for temporary living, housing, that sort of thing. But then also, once they get a check for either the fair market value of the house or the cost to rebuild. I mean, some people may decide not to rebuild, just take the check and move out of California.
Or out of California, go somewhere else.
Some people, because of
you may just take the check and sell the lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Which they should be able to allow to do that, because you don't insure land, you just insure the building.
I remember in Oakland when they had a horrible fire in '91, there were a lot of people that did leave, but there were a lot more that stayed and rebuilt on their own property. And you look at Oakland today, you see a lot of these new homes up in the hills, and they look kind of strange in a way because they just sort of don't mix in with the rest of the Oakland hills. But I don't know if they got the full value of that either. I just don't know.
Probably. And the thing is, Oakland Hills, that was a very hilly area, and in Santa Rosa, I mean, it's relatively flat.
Yeah.
So it'll be easy to build. Obviously, you got to get rid of all the debris and I don't know what other infrastructure they have to do.
I guess it's just it was a firestorm though, where this wind just knocked over power lines, and they haven't really isolated or figured out exactly what caused the fires. But apparently, some people speculate that the down power lines created sparks, which ignited in the dry brush and dry grass nearby, because 17 of these fires went off almost simultaneously. So it seems highly unlikely that they were set by an arsonist. There was no lightning at the time, so this means...
Yeah, but does that mean all the poles fell at the same time?
Yeah, well, they all, who knows? I mean, the winds were howling. They were blowing 70 miles an hour.
Okay, and out here in California, or Northern California, we have, it's called PG&E.
Right.
And I can just imagine what's going to happen. Lawsuits up the yin-yang, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to get sued. They're going to get sued for hundreds of billions of dollars.
Well, think about how.
But here's the rest of it, though. Then PG&E, I mean, they care, but they don't care, because then they get to go back to the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, and go, okay, we lost billions of dollars. Now everyone's rates have to go up.
Yeah.
Because they're a non-profit, right? So.
But you look at some of these power lines. I mean, you wonder how they could stand, and obviously they didn't stand in the wind because. There's got to be a better way to. I mean, we're getting off on a tangent
and that's
here.
why they've been doing underground.
They've been talking about it for a long time, but I know it's very expensive, and that's a problem too. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, I guess. But anyway, how do we get off on that topic on sports econ 101?
It's a dominant topic.
Yeah, it is.
In our country, I mean, we haven't. I mean, since the Oakland Hills fire, I mean, we haven't seen a natural disaster like this in the Bay Area.
No, we haven't. Hey, I want to switch topics real quickly because I know we don't have a lot of time. I got to ask you, we're on timely topics. what your guys' read is on this whole national anthem thing, because it seems like that issue is, I wasn't going to say die down, but it seems like the president has politicized it to the point that players are now more adamant than ever about.
Yeah, but what about Jerry Jones?
Jerry Jones is a whole different. You never know what to think of him. I don't know. What's your read on this whole thing?
That's going to be an interesting thing. If we're going to see how hardline Jerry Jones is, if in fact he truly believes that any player that does not stand for the national anthem doesn't play. I mean, what if? Not that they would, but I mean, what if it was Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott?
Then you get all the scabs.
Right. I mean, these seem like his best players.
Yeah.
And I don't none of those three that I mentioned would ever do it because they love Jerry Jones, almost father figure like. But it's
yeah.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know.
My concern is that the real issue, the real elephant in the room, is racism in America.
Yeah.
And that's the core of all of this. And what the players were doing is they were sitting during the national anthem because they wanted to make a statement on the grandest stage there is, these NFL games.
And doing it in a peaceful manner.
And people immediately were like, "Oh, they're disrespecting the flag and the military," and the players were like, "No, that's not what we're doing." But I mean, who do serve.
Yeah.
And then just the racial injustice in America. Now it's now it's just completely out of control.
Well, I've talked to several.
That is the issue.
It is
on the part of the players.
I was going to say, Vern, I talked to several players about this, and they have told me to a man that each one of them has either had bad experiences with the police or had friends that have had bad experiences with the police. And again, I don't want to get into a whole, race issue about this, but it is a fact that if you are black in this country, you are more likely to get stopped by the police. You are more likely to get profiled, and it's just a fact. And I think that's what they're trying to raise is the awareness. And unfortunately, because they're dealing with the flag and the national anthem, that immediately is a hot button issue for a lot of other people. And President Trump isn't helping the issue any by exacerbating it and picking at this wound. So I don't see it.
I just don't see an upside because the guys who are protesting are suddenly going to gain more fans.
Right.
But there are people who are saying, you know what, screw it, I'm not going to watch it.
Well, if you're not going to watch a game just because you don't like what a guy is standing for, then what does that say about you as a person? I don't think it says a whole lot. And more importantly, I don't think the players really care. It's too big an issue for them to ignore. Some of them have taken the stance that we're not going to get involved, but others, the 49ers, for instance, their owner has said, hey, you do whatever you want to do. I'm here to support you. It's unfortunate it's come to this. I don't see this thing just dying and going away, though. That's for sure.
No, I don't think it's going away at all. I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, the ownership, if you just look at the complexion of the ownership, it's white. If you look at their players, the Gladiators, 70% black. And they're all tied into an industry that's $9-10 billion a year.
Yeah.
So it's I mean that's I hate to pick this cat, but there it is, exposed right there. I mean,
therein lies a problem. Yeah, no question. Well, and a lot of these owners,
at least the Gladiators are making a lot of money. They're not like slaves, but
no, they're making good money. I mean, but they're imperiling their own futures. But they're doing it because they have a conscience and they feel. I would like to see actually these guys doing something maybe more proactive in the community.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what you could do rather than just making a symbolic gesture. I think the symbolic gesture is probably something they feel they need to do, but it'd be nice to see.
Try to reach out to the police and try to bridge gaps or something.
Well, something. I think most of the police are decent people, but unfortunately, there's some bad apples out there that need to be weeded out. And with social media and with the preponderance of guns now that are available, the cops are on edge because they don't know if they're going to be outgunned. And I think there's a lot more violence that seems to be out there because we see it more often on YouTube and all of these, social media.
Well, and here's the other elephant in the room is, there's a lot of pensions out there that got to get paid. And, people talk about quotas. And no, they don't have quotas. Well, they do have quotas.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, the average person does, do about 1,000 infractions before getting caught once. But, I don't disrespect the police, but I do get a little bit on edge when I see a police car, just thinking, okay, what are you going to pull me over for? Like, I'm not doing anything.
It is funny how, you drive, even if you're not guilty of anything, you always see a police car. When you drive, you go, oh, make sure I'm in the speed limit, am I in my lane, or whatever,
Yeah, because they can just pick you out anytime. And the thing is, even if you're not speeding, what's to stop them from pulling you over and just saying, no, you're speeding? At
the same time, though, I think these guys have a tough job, and I realize that, unfortunately, most of them do a good job, and most of them are good guys. It's just a few of them that are the bad apples, and I think that, that's true of any industry, but we need to, bring attention to that. So,
I do appreciate like you said, the ownership of the 49ers, where it says, listen, you guys do what you want to do, because he's the employer.
That's right.
And he's sort of, theoretically can make the rules, and he's basically allowing them to express themselves.
You're talking about Jerry Jones, a different story. He gets down and kneels with the players, and then 2 weeks later he's saying, "I'm going to fire you guys if you don't." You thought this
one way or the other.
You'd think this guy would understand that it's not about disrespecting the flag or disrespecting the anthem, and yet 2 weeks later, he gets back into the political argument. I don't understand.
It would have been better for him to just stay on one side of the
equation. Yeah, he bounces back and forth. I think he's trying to please everybody. He's pleasing nobody.
That's the typical thing. Okay, hey guys, we're going to get to our last commercial break here. Last trivia question. What 20th century pitcher was the first to strike out 18 batters in a game? Right? That's our question. Right. Email edward@sportsecon101.com the answer to that question. Last trivia question here about baseball pitchers. What 20th century pitcher was the first to strike out 18 batters in a game? It's funny. I wonder if there was a 19th century pitcher who struck out 18 batters. I don't know.
I'm sure there was.
But that's our question about 20th century. Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back with some closing comments. All right. And we'll close this bad boy off.
Boy, it is smoky up here, Vernon. Yeah. Are your lungs bothering you at all? My wife has got the lung cancer, and luckily it's not been a problem. But she says her lungs are actually, because she does have kind of weak lungs a little bit, and she says her lungs are hurting when she takes deep breaths.
It doesn't really affect my lungs, but it does kind of like burn my eyes a little bit.
Yeah, a little headache.
Well, imagine living in Rio de Janeiro or Los Angeles during the smog days. This is probably what it was like.
Yeah. It's funny. You've a couple of weeks ago told me about this outdoor CrossFit type thing. Like the guy has a little cul-de-sac and he does his weight, and we were supposed to do that, but I don't think I want to do that.
No, this
right weather here. All right, you guys ready?
Yes.
All right, let's close this out here. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan and Vern Glenn. Last trivia question was, what 20th century pitcher was the first to strike out 18 batters in a game?
I'm going to let Vernon give that a try. I have an idea.
I'll take a step. I know I'm wrong, but I'll guess Roger Clemens.
I'm going to say Kerry Wood. I remember Kerry Wood.
No, before that.
Oh, it was back in the 80s?
No, before that.
70s?
Before.
60s?
Before.
50s?
Before.
40s?
Before.
30s?
Yes.
Wow.
Very good. You got it, Bruce.
All right, 30s. Well, we had Carl Hubble before.
No,
it's not Carl Hubble. Lefty Grove? We've mentioned it before.
Right after Carl Hubble. 1938.
Wow.
He was a Cleveland Indian. Come on.
Oh, jeez. I should know.
Bob Feller.
Bob Feller.
Bob Feller.
Yeah, he was just a kid when he did it, too.
That's right.
19 years old.
Struck me out once.
Yeah. I tell you, speaking of, we were talking politics earlier. Did he really? You actually went up and batted against him?
He came out and he pitched. That was like an exhibition thing at down in San Jose before the San Jose Giants game.
Wow.
And I grabbed a bat, faced him, and he still had his stuff, man. I couldn't hit him.
That was about 15 years ago?
No, this was, 92, 3?
Yeah, 25 years. He was probably.
You should have pulled an Eddie Goodell and just stood there for a walk.
One thing about Bob Feller, never talk politics with him. Oh, my God. No. He was real feisty.
Okay. All right, guys, we got to cut out. Vern, thanks again for joining us on Sports Econ 101.
Good talking to you, Vern.
All right,
man. Vern's going to be covering the 49ers today.
Right.
In the smoke.
Oh, the smoke. That's right. Okay, here's our thoughts for the day. Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it.
I like that.
Coach Lou Holt said that. And losers quit when they're tired. Winners quit when they've won, said Unk Known.
Unk Known?
Unk Known. Okay. Tune in next.
What is Uncle No? Who is that guy?
Who is Uncle No?
Yeah, who's Uncle
Okay,
No?
tune in next week. Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective. We're also going to be, what are we going to do? We're going to ask also some sports trivia questions.
Yeah.
Don't know what the topic's going to be. We'll figure it
We'll
out.
figure it out.
Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.
All right, my friend.
All right.
I'm running back home because Molly's, I can tell she doesn't like it when I'm leaving her alone.
Yes. She's 11, right?